Welcome to today's explainer. Now, I want you to picture something for a second. You've just poured your absolute heart and soul into a new passion project. You know the drill. You stayed up way too late, you obsessed over literally every tiny detail, and finally, you put it out into the world, just waiting for the applause. And what do you get? Crickets. Absolute deafening silence. It is a crushing, almost physically painful reality that pretty much every creator and builder faces at some point. So today, we're going to look at exactly why that happens, and more importantly, how you can save yourself from it.
This perfectly brings us to a really famous piece of advice from the literary world. It's often attributed to Arthur Quiller Couch and heavily championed by Stephen King: kill your darlings. Now, in the writing world, this means you're inevitably going to write a sentence, or maybe a whole character, that you are just madly in love with. It's poetic, it's brilliant, but if it doesn't actually advance the plot, you have to take a knife and ruthlessly cut it out. You literally have to kill it because your personal attachment to it is actually dragging down the pacing of the entire book.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because in our modern digital economy, we aren't just writing paragraphs, right? We're building digital assets. So what exactly happens when your so-called darling is a highly produced vlog series, or a podcast format, or maybe a recurring newsletter segment?
Just imagine this scenario. You decide you're going to start this beautiful, cinematic vlog series. Let's call it Mindset Mondays. You drop $400 on a custom neon sign for your background. You spend 12 agonizing hours color grading the footage. You deliver this deeply philosophical monologue and you hit upload. And the market responds with a whopping 142 views. Meanwhile, a 60-second, terribly lit screen recording you slap together in 10 minutes about how to export a CSV from Notion gets 45,000 views. The agony, right? So what happens? Your ego flares up. You rationalize it. You tell yourself, oh, people are just too lazy for deep thoughts. So you keep forcing Mindset Mondays on the world. Well, you, my friend, have just fallen headfirst into the sunk cost guillotine, actively draining your business just to feed your ego.
So consider this explainer your personal roadmap to escaping that exact trap. We're going to cover 4 key areas today. First, the misunderstood genius delusion. Second, amateur versus professional creators. Third, 4 tactical pivot frameworks you can actually use today. And finally, adopting the museum curator mindset. Let's get to work.
Section 1. The misunderstood genius delusion. This is all about separating your ego from the data.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core problem, which is actually pretty simple. Beginners tend to confuse their business with their diary. Look, when you treat your project like a diary, every single piece of content you make feels like a reflection of your identity. So, when the audience inevitably rejects a project, your brain immediately interprets it as a personal attack. You think, they don't like me, they don't think I'm smart. But when you flip that and treat it like a business, you realize you're just here to build an asset and provide utility. A failed format isn't a personal rejection at all, it's literally just data.
Time for some tough love. The market is never wrong. Your ego is. If a format isn't getting views, it's not because it's too smart for the audience. It's simply boring them. The market is holding up this giant flashing neon sign that says, hey, we do not want this specific packaging of information right now. Ignoring that data just because you're in love with the format, it's exactly like a restaurant owner who keeps a $40 truffle risotto on the menu just because he loves eating it, even though his customers only want to buy $5 hot dogs. He is absolutely going to go bankrupt trying to serve his own tastes.
Moving to Section 2, Amateur versus Professional Creators. Let's look at a tale of 2 tech creators.
Now, what's really interesting about this comparison is seeing the exact same scenario handled 2 entirely different ways. First, we have the amateur, our cinematic historian. They spend 60 exhausting hours making a 40-minute BlackBerry documentary. The result? A measly 3,000 views. And analytics show everyone clicked off by minute 4. Naturally, the amateur blames society for having a short attention span and just quits. But now look at the pro. She makes the exact same 40-minute documentary, and yeah, it flops for her too. But instead of crying about it, she checks her analytics and realizes a hard truth. Her audience wants quick utility, not slow cinematic history.
So the pro executes a pivot. She takes the exact same research she already did, but she repackages it into a fast-paced 6-minute talking head video called 3 Fatal Business Mistakes BlackBerry Made. And get this, she shoots it on her iPhone, literally just sitting in her car. The result? 250,000 views. It goes totally viral among entrepreneurs. She killed her darling, that slow cinematic format, and transplanted the valuable information into a package that the market was actually begging to consume.
Section 3. 4 tactical pivot frameworks.
Here is how you can objectively execute the guillotine.
Trick number 1 is what we call the 3-strike rule. Look, you should never kill a format after just one try. The algorithm might have just been weird that day, or maybe your thumbnail was honestly just awful. So, strike 1, you test it. It flops. Give yourself some grace and assume the packaging was bad. Strike 2, you improve the hook and it flops again. Okay, assume your pacing is a bit off. Try it one last time. Strike 3, you give it your absolute best effort and it flops a third time. Execution time. The market has spoken 3 separate times. Bury the format and move on with absolutely 0 exceptions.
Let's move to trick 2 and see how this builds on that idea. Trick 2 is the format transplant. Just because a format is dying doesn't mean the underlying topic is worthless. Before you kill the darling, save the organs. Imagine that 20-minute Mindset Monday vlog is getting 0 views, but in your DMs, people keep asking about the specific books you casually mentioned in the video. Guys, the market is talking to you. The transplant here is super simple. Stop making the 20-minute vlog, take that core message, and turn it into a punchy 10-slide Instagram carousel called 3 Books That Fixed My Procrastination. You get to keep the soul of your darling, you just have to change the vehicle.
Next up is trick 3, the 80-20 content audit, which I personally like to call the quarterly purge. Every 90 days, make it a habit to open your analytics and look at your last 50 pieces of content. You are almost always going to see this split. 20% of your formats drove 80% of your growth. That massive gray slice, the bottom 80% of formats, that goes straight to the chopping block. Reallocate all that wasted time into your actual winners. If the data shows your audience loves your software teardowns, then for crying out loud, stop making day-in-the-life vlogs. Cut the fat and double down on those teardowns. But hey, what if you just can't do it? Trick 4 is the hobby hour compromise. Look, we're human. Sometimes you have a darling that brings you immense personal joy, even if the algorithm absolutely hates it. If you genuinely cannot bear to kill it, quarantine it. Move it to a Patreon-only tier or maybe a secondary B-side channel. Just tell your audience, hey, I love making these cinematic deep dives, but I know they aren't for everyone. If you want to support the art, you can find them on my Patreon. This is brilliant because it perfectly filters out those casual viewers and it turns your failing public content into a premium gated product specifically for your true fans. You satisfy your creative itch without punishing your main business. Finally, Section 4, the Museum Curator Mindset. This is where we shift your creator identity. So, the crucial point is this ultimate mindset shift. Most creators operate exactly like an attic hoarder. They keep every single broken VHS tape from 1998 just because it has sentimental value. As a result, their feed becomes cluttered, it's confusing, and when a new guest arrives, they just get overwhelmed by all the junk and leave. You have to become a museum curator. Think about it. A curator doesn't display every single painting they personally like. Their job is to curate a highly specific, world-class experience for the guest. If a painting is boring the guests, they don't leave it up on the wall just because they're emotionally attached to it. They coldly take it down, they archive it, and they prioritize the masterpieces.
Your feed is a museum, and your audience are the guests. So the next time you see a series underperforming, I want you to look at it with the cold, objective eyes of a curator. More in the format for a minute, sure, but then take it down and start painting what the market actually wants to buy. As you clear out your own feed to save your business, you have to ask yourself one final question. Which masterpiece is hiding behind the clutter in your museum right now?